Father, we thank you, Lord, for this wonderful man of God. Thank you for the way that you are at work in his life. Thank you for the gift that he is to the church, the way that he serves. Lord, I want to thank you for the faith that he has in you, the way that he, Lord, such a living witness for you, wherever you have placed him. And as a family, Lord, that they are being such a blessing everywhere. And now, even as you are taking them to distant shores, I pray that your presence will be with them. And now, even as he comes to share the word, I pray your anointing be upon him, Lord. Even as he speaks, I pray you will speak to us in our hearts, Lord, the word that you would want us to hear at the point of our need. I want to commit Satish in your hands in a very special way. Holy Spirit, come. Be with him, be with us. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, church.
Good morning.
We had people sharing about having spent 3 years together, and someone else sharing about being 25 years together. We are safely sandwiched somewhere, completing 15, running fast towards completing 16, and my beautiful, long-suffering wife is there in that corner. And I couldn't just resist sharing one or two instances before we move on. We never have any major disputes in our family about minor issues like maybe which car to buy, or whether we should invest in a house or things like that. We just don't have any arguments. It's always one decision maker.
You might give us permission now.
Okay, two instances. One was, I still distinctly remember, it's about 10 years ago. We were posted in Vizag, and we were going for an evening walk. And we had again like one of these major disagreements on whether our young son should be wearing a green shirt or a blue shirt for the party that was probably there. Maybe something like that. And naturally, it was a major disagreement, and each one of us were absolutely convinced that we were right in our own ways, as is always the case. And however, in my magnanimity, I decided to concede. And I said, yes, you are right. I'm sorry. It's not easy, isn't it? For me, people who have walked that path, you know how difficult it is. So I eased up all my ego, and I went down in absolute holiness and obedience. And I said, Mommy, I'm sorry. And then she looks at me into my eyes and says, sorry bol diya na, bas sab kuch ho gaya. It basically means you said sorry and that's all fine, isn't it? And here I was. Seething is the understatement, I had to tie my hands behind not to let it fling into the air. And that's when I just looked up to the same nudging force that told me, say sorry. And it wasn't easy to apologize the next time. And I said, I'm sorry to the one who made me. And I said, I'm sorry, Lord, what I think of myself. Another instance was, again, coming to church on time is a major issue. I don't know how many of you, I know all of you are well on time, you don't have any issues with such issues. But being in the armed forces, we have been trained to be 10 minutes before wherever we are. So right from 10 o'clock, incidentally, unlike ladies, my wife is one of those who can get ready in 3 minutes. Actually, absolutely ready to go in 3 minutes. And she is a superwoman. So because of which at 10 o'clock, she decides that we can clean up the house, and by 10:17 we can get into it, and 10:20 we can be there for a 10:30 service. Now I am panting because I am not that efficient, I say, we need to go, we are getting late, and that used to be a constant struggle every Sunday. This was again 10 years back. And one day, in my typical fashion, I don't really express my anger. I do the next best thing that I can do, that is make a long face. Just in case you don't know how a long face looks, it is like this. I believe my elder son is getting it. Okay, so here I was, sitting on the sofa, making a long face, and then again I heard this still soft voice saying, "Why do you want to be on time for the church?" And I realized it was just to prove to everybody that I am on time. There was no element of worship to the Lord. And I heard that still soft voice saying, "Can't you sit here and worship in this sofa instead of making that long face?" I said, "Yes, Lord, I can." And I started worshiping the Lord, sitting in that chair. And I can assure you, from that day onwards till late, we hardly had any disagreements about coming on time to church. It was just an act of obedience. I know it is Christmas, I know we should have been talking of greens and breads and carols and all that. But I thought, like LT Uncle said, we need to look at the Bible from the perspective of a first century Jewish Christian. And then it really changes the way things are for us. So I thought we will do in a typical Forgy style. Forge is army. Forgy style, the case study of Mary's obedience. And then we'll try to draw lessons. And let me check my technological progress now. I think I got it right. It was supposed to be on obedience, but we couldn't really fit that ON into this. So let's go with obedience. The structure of the talk would be as shown on the screen. We would go through Mary's obedience. Hindrances to obedience. I know the definition of obedience would be different. These are hindrances that I have faced. It would be a personal story as I share with you. Overcoming obedience, again, it's a very personal story. You might empathize with it or you can draw the lessons from it. And I think if it is obedience, it needs to have some practical steps, so I suggest some. Let's get into Mary's story. I'll try to use minimal amount of references, jogging in and back into the Bible. But let's just go through the story and try to understand what it's all about. There was a word from the angel, which is written in Luke, which all of us are well aware, where the promised Messiah is said, Mary is told by Angel Gabriel saying that you will be the mother of the promised Messiah, just to paraphrase it. And as the King James Version says, and so popularized by Don Moen, Mary says, "Be it unto me according to thy word." It's easy for us to just go through that line like that. But if you just look at the consequences, for a minute, let's draw back ourselves 2000 or so years. As per Jewish law and custom, anyone found caught in adultery, which is technically what it should have been because she's already been betrothed to Joseph, should have been stoned to death. That is what the law says. Subsequently, the law has been modified by, I was just reading a little bit up, by 1st century BC or so. It was not always adultery being resulted in stoning of people to death, but it definitely would have been, she would have been an untouchable for the rest of her life. She would have been isolated by the community, set apart. That is what it would have been. For a moment, if we just put ourselves in Mary's shoes and we were given that option, here I am, sent her, probably would have been our answer. Think about it. Mary chose to say, be it unto me according to thy word. And because of that act of obedience, we have the Savior. I'm not glorifying Mary over here. What I'm trying to say is, it is through these simple acts of obedience, God honors. God uses people. Whenever you walk in step of obedience, there is always a confirmation to the call. There was a call which Mary received from Gabriel, which is when you say yes, when you answer in the affirmative. This is something I can affirm from my own personal life, and most of you would. There's always confirmations that come down the line. The first confirmation is Joseph's obedience. Naturally, Joseph would have come to know about this, but Joseph himself would have told the story, isn't it? Yes, an angel came and told me also. Hang on, it's from the Lord. So Joseph woke up and did what the angel of the Lord commanded. Now it says, yes, this is from the Lord. So stick on to her. Joseph was a noble man. He said, I will secretly divorce her so that this whole thing doesn't get, breaking news. It doesn't really create an post-media atmosphere. The next is Elizabeth's word in Luke 1:42. As we read Luke, we realize the moment Mary has this incident, the next thing that is recorded in the Bible, as you read in continuity, is Mary gets sick and goes to Elizabeth, who is a cousin. And the moment Elizabeth sees Mary, even without any prelude or stories being exchanged, she straight away says, "Blessed are you among women, blessed is the child you will bear." That is a confirmation for Mary that she did indeed hear from the Lord. So when you hear and answer in the affirmative to the Lord's call, or what you think is the Lord's call, you generally have confirmations. Another confirmation is the shepherd's arrival in the manger. It's an angelic thing, it's a supernatural thing. The shepherds are being told by the angels that this is front you, the Savior is born, and the city of David, just go. So naturally, if the shepherds came there to the village, they would have told her, the angel told us, that's why we have come, doesn't it? If you put yourself into, Bethlehem is not, I used to wonder, how did they localize the shepherds, how did they, when the angel told them somewhere on the hills, how did they manage to find the house? I try to visualize Bethlehem as something like Kataribag or Cochin city, and you're trying to go from house to house. But Bethlehem is not really that big as we visualize it today, and not too many children would have been born. So it's easy to localize, and naturally when they came there, they come down and say, the angels told us. It was again another confirmation. And subsequently later in life, when they come on the 8th day to into the temple, Simeon and Anna's testimony, which is recorded in Luke 2:25-51. It's a very beautiful word that Luke especially uses, Mary treasured these things. Mary treasured these things. And we'll get back to that later. And subsequently, probably because Mary treasured these things and she knew this was a supernatural thing that's going to happen, and he was the Savior. The first recorded miracle, as per John, is water turning into wine. And it's not Jesus who initiated the miracle, it was Mary. She tells, they have no more wine. And Jesus says, dear woman, why do you involve me? My time has not yet come. It's kind of saying that he indeed does the miracle, which much to the joy of most Mallus, they really uphold this as one of the finest moments of Christian history, and they still drink like fish. Yes, it goes back. Another interesting thing when you look at the miracle of water turning into wine. Again, talking of obedience, Jesus tells them, pour that water into the pitchers. We'll try to visualize that side. There are barn, when the pitchers are there, we put water into them, and it has them draw water out of the pitchers and take it to the master of the ceremony. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Whoever says that to me. I mean, taking water out of the pitchers and taking it. It's just simple obedience. And it's this simple obedience that transforms things. And we realize that that wine was much better than the earlier wine. But as Mary walks through her life, in every call, in every answer to a call, doubts still persist. Doubts persist throughout. John the Baptist had doubts. Though he was the one who actually said, I'm not worthy to tie his sandals. But he himself had doubts. He subsequently says, are you the one, or are you to expect somebody else? Even in the family, there were doubts. And yes, Mark 3:21 registers, They say he's out of his mind. And another version says he's besides himself. Because he was so pouring out himself into people. And at times, he also made that mention, saying that, who are my mother and brothers? He who do the word of the Lord. So, naturally, if we look at these words purely from a biblical perspective, because we are so familiar with these words. But if you actually visualize it, my brother was Jesus. If you put ourselves in that setting, it puts things in a totally different perspective. So there were doubts in the mind. His ways are not our ways, but His ways are supernatural. They're beyond our ways. They overwhelm me. But we try to figure out everything with our finite minds. We try to put things in boxes the way, okay Lord, so this is your doing, so you need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this. He doesn't work that way. It's beyond us. So the death on the cross seemed to be the end for the disciples, or for Mary for that matter. But there was the third day that was coming. There was resurrection. There was victory over death across the road, across the corner, just around the Saturday. God's ways are different. But with simple obedience, it results in the exaltation of His name. Which, on the cross, when the Lord says, dear woman, here is your son, probably that was what was going through her mind. When Lazarus died, it sounded that that was the end of the matter. But there is the third day that is there. That is, I feel, a walk of Mary's obedience. Now, coming to hindrances to obedience, I thought I'll just look inwards as I share this with you. This would be very personal, but you can draw your lessons based upon where you come from and what your walk is. Expectations of the supernatural. When you're talking of the calling, I don't know how you visualize a calling, but I always felt that it had to have something jing bang, as we say, something spectacular. Something like the burning bush appearance, When the Lord calls, He will say, okay, Moses, Moses. You need to have a desert, you need to have some bushes over there. Something, you get the point that I'm trying to make. Something big. Angels descending, stars descending, I'm here in the church, I'm lifting my hands and I'm worshipping. Suddenly I feel something happening. Tongues coming down. That was my personal thing. Something different should happen. And, we make doctrines to ourselves. And the doctrine, according to Satish, was justified by incidents of the Bible. If this happened to Moses, if this happened to Isaiah, heavenly vision, things are flying around, and then one fog comes over here, and one fire comes over here, and a tongue comes over here, and then He says, here I am, send me. I just needed that, something different, some groundbreaking, moment, an encounter, a divine encounter. I was really earnestly waiting for that. In fact, when we were 15, that was when, class 10th we passed, we have this 2 months of break. So we were about a bunch of 6 or 7, 5 kids in our church. We used to meet every Saturday and we used to fast and pray through the night, sleep in the church, like that Samuel thing, Get up early in the morning, we used to prepare the church, and then we used to take a quick rinse in the vicinity of the church itself and get ready and go through the things. And for 2 years we were waiting on the Lord. We were just, first time we were introduced to the teaching of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So we're waiting on the Lord in earnest expectation for about 2 years, praying and wrestling with the Lord to be anointed with the Holy Spirit. We had the faith that could move mountains, at that time. We just wanted to take the world and turn it upside down and, touch, and people should start shaking and shivering, and, the works. People should start getting healed. There was absolute sincerity in what we did. I was 15. 16, nothing happened. 17, I joined NDA. That was the end of it. NDA is National Defense Academy, where we trained for the army. Then I got into a quid pro quo relationship with the Lord, where I said, okay Lord, you do this, I do this to you, and that sort of thing. We had an equation with the Lord, and I maintained that till the Lord really touched me subsequently in the life. But this continued to plague me, the expectations of the supernatural. I always believe that there should be that one special encounter with the Lord. The next one was, there are several, but like all Christian preachers, we should either stick to 3 or 5 or 7, so I thought I'll stick to 3. So the need for the spectacular was another thing that was there with me. It's something like, in Acts 3:6, you remember that? John and Peter, they go up the temple, and they say, silver or gold I do not have, but in the name of the Lord I say, talk. And the guy gets up. I said, Lord, this is what should happen. You give me that power, give me that strength. Because it was absolutely scriptural. You remember he said this thing in John 14:12, greater things than these that you shall do in my name. It was an absolute scriptural backing. He said, it's Lord, you said so. And we want to do that. We want to make this happen. And somehow it just didn't happen. I remember whenever as a newborn Christian, this was of all places in a place called Gujarat, which is a bastion of the BJP in the recent elections. That was where I accepted the Lord. I accepted the Lord because of a question, a point blank question that was put to me by a gentleman from Africa. So the story is this: I am from the east of the country, a coastal town, had a Christian upbringing. My parents come from a Hindu background. I had an absolute Christian upbringing. I was good from Genesis to Revelation. I knew everything that was required to be there. I used to top all the quiz competitions, but I had this quid pro quo relationship with Christ. So one of my friends, who was also a believer, we were together in the NDA Academy together. So he leaves a message for me saying that there is this Captain Richard Vachira from the Indian Navy. Captain, as in they use army ranks for the naval guys. He was a young lieutenant. So he said, you please go and meet him. So I go and meet him, and I just knock on the door. The door opens. He says, come in. The door was open. I open the door, go inside. I said, hello sir, I'm Sub-Lieutenant Satish. And Sub-Lieutenant Manjit told me to meet you. He looks at me. Yes, brother. Are you saved? That was the first question he asked me. And that's not considered, I mean, that's actually considered rude in Indian context, you know. We don't ask such questions. So I said, I'm not sure about that. And then he says, what do you mean? If you die today, where will you go? I said, I think I'm fairly sure about that part. And he said, then what are you waiting for? I said, I gave him my doctrine of perfection. And I said, if you're committed to the Lord, you have to be 100% commitment. And now I'm still not there, so I have this quid pro quo relationship. Then he said one thing that I'll never forget in my life. He said, it's not what you do, it's what he did. It's not what you do, it's what he did on the cross. You're made perfect by what he did, because you'll never be able to be perfect by what you do. I said, yes. I was in the church for 20 years. I didn't know that. I didn't know grace. I was doing all the right things. I didn't know grace. So he said, what are you waiting for? I said, nothing, here I am. I said, here I am. And I'm glad I did that. That was in 1997. And by God's grace, we're doing well. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was just one question. Are you saved? That brought me to the Lord. Another thing as I walked my journey with the Lord was my need for the entire plan. If the Lord says go there, I don't know what you people, I mean, my wife is really good that way. She goes ahead, she's the doer, and she just does things. And maybe if she has got some spare mental capacity, she considers thinking about it. And it's really good to have such people, because for me, I am the other kind, you know. I'm such a grand strategist and a planner. We never move out of the planning room. So the Lord does wonders. He gets such people together, and we balance it out, and we're able to move the car out of the house. So for me, I always needed the entire plan. And I asked myself, you know, why do I need the entire plan? I needed the entire plan because I feared failure. I just could not get it wrong. I needed to be right. I needed to be right. It was about me. I needed to be in control. I don't know how many of you can empathize with that. I needed the entire plan because I wanted to be right. I think the Garden of Eden, we just having a small WhatsApp thing the other day. The Garden of Eden was all about I. We were made in the image of God. Genesis says, let us make man in our image. We were made in the image of God. What does Satan come and the fall? What is the fall all about? In chapter 3, Satan comes and says, if you eat the fruit, you will become like God. Isn't it interesting? You were already made in the image of God, and Satan talks of a counterfeit, saying that you will become like God. That's what happens even after salvation. We are made perfect. And so Satan keeps coming and telling you, if you do this, you'll become better. If you do this, you'll become better. So when I accepted the Lord, I accepted leaving all my sins of perfection. And I said, I am made perfect by what you did on the cross. But subsequently, somewhere down the line, I realized that I had to do this. I had to do this. And it became doings. I had this small, cute fridge magnet somebody gave me. God made us as human beings, not doings. And I realized I was so busy doing things, trying to do things. I'm called to be a being. I'm made in His image. I'm called to be in his image. That was what Adam was all about. Till he chose to do things my way. And we still do it today. Like Frankie said, I did it my way and singing songs about it. I live my way and I'm happy about it. And we keep just singing eulogies about it. And it's really interesting. If you go to the, it's good to read history. If you dig into the stories of each person who said I did it my way, you will either find suicide at the end of it, or an element of life filled with drugs and alcohol and just trying to miserably forget everything. Because there's nothing materialistic, nothing in this world that can give you the joy that comes from Him. Nothing. A lot of people have tried it and failed miserably. And Christ is yet to fail. Christ is yet to fail. I haven't seen a single person who said, I've tasted Christ and He failed me. I realized it was about me. The fall was about I-dependent. We are called to be God-dependent. That's the way we are being constructed. That is the way we are being designed to be God-dependent. We chose to be I-dependent, and as long as I continue to be I-dependent, I live in misery. And the second Adam set it right. He says in John, I don't do anything except for what my Father tells me. It's about being God-dependent in everything that I do. I mean, we also do that, we sing songs. Everything I do, I live for you. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. But it's not about singing, it's about being. I'm not using the word doing intentionally. It's about being transformed inside out and being like Christ. That's what Jesus did. He didn't pretend to be something else. He was fully human. He was fully divine. He was just as He was. He just listened to His Father and He lived that life, the same inside out. I don't know about you, my language changes the moment I am in these surroundings. The typical language that I have at home, or for that matter in Qatari Bagh in office, is different from what it is here. I'm called to be the same inside out. I'm trying, not in my own strength. I'm trying to be the same. That's what we're called to be. The need for the entire plan is basically because I want to be in control. And that is so difficult to digest. For most Christians, we have 100 theologies which will come to say how we need to make plans and God will bless it. The only plan that we need to make is be on our knees and say, Lord, be it unto me according to thy word.
Amen.
And He will open the doors. He will open my brains. He will show me what to do at every step, at every stage. Isn't it interesting? The Bible says the word is a lamp to my feet. I know most of us in the Qatari Bagh, we did carols. And we had a very beautiful thing. We were carrying candles. And when you carry candles, it gives light just for that small immediate vicinity. Try to visualize for a minute. You are in a pitch dark room. A pitch dark room with just a lamp, a small lamp. Thy word. Do you get to see 2 meters ahead or 200 meters ahead? Mostly our prayer is, Lord, let thy word be a floodlight to my feet or something like that. We want that searchlight. I want to know the end of the tunnel, the other side, Lord. I generally tend towards that control freak thing, where I want to be in control, I want to know everything. Even when I read about the Bible, I just want to figure out everything. Till you keep hearing the still soft voices, Till one fine day I heard this voice saying that, son, if you know everything, you will be me. Some things are meant to be mysteries. So it's okay not to know everything. And when I asked myself, why do I want to know everything? It was primarily because I wanted to answer everybody, any question, anything that comes, I needed to have my arsenals full. But the Bible really tells you, when you stand up there, you will be given the right word at the right moment. It's about trusting Him. But I want to do it. I want to be in control. That's another hindrance for answering to a call, at least in my walk. How do we overcome these hindrances? How do I overcome this hindrance? If you see the study of Simon Peter, the calling of Simon Peter, which is narrated in Luke 5, each of the gospel gives a slightly different version. Again, that's another thing I always wanted to figure out. Not why this differences, because I did have a very satisfactory answer to give to my friends when somebody asked us the differences. But eventually I found that the beauty of it is having the differences is the best proof for the authenticity of the Bible. Isn't it? If you and me had to work it out, we would have sorted out all the differences and we would have make this correction in Luke, make this correction. Hey, yeah, it's not tallying, it's not matching. Come on, man. You would have sorted out all the differences. The greatest proof for the authenticity of the Bible is these minor differences that are there. Over 2,000 years, so many people, it hasn't changed. I said, thank you, Lord. If you see the calling of Simon Peter, the first word is, Jesus comes. There's this huge crowd on the shore, and he says, these guys have worked all night, and they're just coming ashore. And the Lord says, put out a little from shore. This is so that He could preach to them. They didn't say, Lord, we are just tired, we have a bus to catch or something. They said, yes, Lord. They went. Step one, obedience. Jesus finishes off His preaching, and the moment He finishes off His preaching, then obviously Peter realized he's got something to do more than just being an normal man. I mean, in olden days, people could make out that this particular gentleman was a rabbi, and so that's why they conceded in the first step. They took him out. So probably once Jesus preached, they realized there's some substance to this man. So Jesus says, put out into deeper water and let down the nets. And Peter says, because you say so, I will let down the nets. There's a prelude to this also. I mean, he says, we have worked the whole night. We are professional fishermen. We know what we are doing. And we're done it. No joy. But because you say so, I will let down the nets. How many of you had these experiences? Where you do everything the way you're supposed to do, and things don't happen. And you say, because you say so, I'll do it again. I personally found situations in which computers start working for the presentation on Sunday morning, projectors which are not working start working. I don't know why, but it happens. And a coincidence of coincidence is not a coincidence, so I don't believe it is the Lord. But because you say so, it's good to let down the nets in obedience. The moment you do that, this is what happens. The realization comes of what I am. When I take this first step of obedience, the realization comes. I am a sinful man. And this was the first time. There's another similar story. Zacchaeus. The stirring in the heart is always from the Lord. So Zacchaeus has this stirring to see the Lord. But all of us have stirrings, but he did something when he got the stirring. He did that step of obedience. He climbed up a tree. There was enthusiasm. How many of you will climb up a tree to look at Mr. Modi? I know Henrietta's face says Modi Jalte Jal. All. No, I'm not a fan of Modi, but I'm not a hater also. But anyone, Sachin Tendulkar or whatever, Virat Kohli or something. But what I'm trying to say is, there was a stirring in him, and he did that action of climbing up a tree. Jesus comes, he says, look, I want to come to you. And thereafter, Jesus didn't preach, he didn't take his Bible and say, according to the Gospel of John, this, that, and all that. The moment Jesus came, there was transformation in Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus says, Lord, I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. Similarly, the moment you do take that first step of obedience, the realization comes, and Peter says, I am a sinful man. And the beauty is not that, the beauty is this. The beauty is this, and Christ says, from now on, you will catch men. And that is the calling. We are not here to have a good time here. It's good to have a good time, but this is not a calling. This is not a calling. We are called to have a good fellowship, we should have a good meal. That is not a calling. Our calling is out there. We are called to catch men. Second thing is being faithful in small things. Matthew 25-23, most of us are familiar with the parable, so I will not go into the specifics. The Lord says, you are being faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. I recently heard a story of somebody who is in the ministry. He was so convinced that he was not a good preacher. He is not called to these big things, coming up on stage and talking. And he used to be faithful in small things. He used to arrange the chairs, he used to lay down the tables, he used to clean up the floor. And that's where he started. And the Lord is working and using him mightily. He is working in an organization which will be joining hopefully later. But it's about being faithful in small things. Most of us think, like my initial ideas, that it's always about the spectacular. You need to be in the stage singing guitar and things like that. And the thing is that the Lord, if you're faithful in small things, He will take you to where He wants to take you. He has His ways. Now if I start insisting and start singing, it won't do justice. For people who know me singing, they will know. I generally sing in unmatchable scales, scale S and scale M. I don't know if you guys are aware of them. So that's the issue. Finally, I know we're not big on catechism and things like that, but sometimes it's good to read them. In the Westminster Catechism's book says, the first question, what is the purpose of man? The chief end of man is to glorify God.
Amen.
The chief end of man is to glorify God. Human nature is to inherently seek glory. As I stand over here talking to you, everything in me cringes that after I complete this sermon and come to the other side, at least 5 or 10 of you should come and say, oh brother, well done, good job, it really touched me. Yeah, I'm just being honest. You need not accede to my request. But that is human, that is me, that is I. In everything that we do, no matter how holy, we want to seek glory for ourselves. It is necessary to remember that whatever I do is to be an act of worship for the Lord. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, do it as an act of worship to the Lord. So I look after a golf course in Indian Navy when I'm not flying the aircraft. So you know what it is. On one side is flying aircraft, the other side is cutting grass. A very exciting thing. Incidentally, I'm not a golfer. So when I was given this job, I was really offended, I was really uncomfortable. But I said, Lord, I will do this as an act of worship to you. Worship you at the grassroots level. It really was encouraging and uplifting to know that it just takes a little bit of mitti, that soil, a little bit of water, and a little bit of sun to grow the grass. And that's a great art in itself, the ability to grow grass. If you do it as an act of worship to the Lord is glorified wherever you are. It's about being faithful in the small things. My wife says I normally know how to start and do not know how to stop. So I kept a timekeeper behind. He just got up and lifted his hands and he told me I got 5 minutes. So I think I'm doing fine. So we come to the end of this. I will suggest a couple of practical steps about being faithful in small things. How can we start? Possibly we can start in contributing to the local church where we are. In your cell groups, in your LGs. If somebody says let's conduct carols, instead of going into whether carols are biblical or not, and bring an in-depth study on how or whether we should do carols. I know we have been having theological arguments on WhatsApp about the correctness of Santa Claus and the incorrectness of Christmas tree. But it's about being faithful. It's about the heart of contribution, willingness to do. The Lord honors. And even if you're wrong, if you're faithful, He will set it right because He is God. Volunteer in areas you can contribute. The reason I said areas you can contribute is like I just mentioned before. If I start singing, it will not really sound appropriate. Move out of your comfort zones. This is something the Lord has been teaching us over the last couple of years. All of us would like to do things that we are comfortable at. Now I'm not talking that I should start singing, but it's about moving out of our comfort zones. Simple things like meeting people you don't know. I can assure you, after this service is over, 4 of us from the Navy will get into this corner, 3 of us from there will get into this corner, and maybe pastor and 1 or 2 elders will be trying to meet up people who have come for the first time and trying to urge the others, why don't you meet the newcomers? And that's what we do. They're talking of moving out of your comfort zones. Christ left heaven to come down to earth. I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon the cross. We were just singing. What can you do for Him? Not that you need to do for Him. It's about feeling that I want to do it for Him. Can I just walk across the room? There's a beautiful book that was written by Bill Hybels. Not that it says just to walk across the room. It's taking that step of faith, taking that step of obedience. Pray for friends or family in need. If you see a need, please walk up. Like on the couple of days before we were singing carols in hospital, there was one of my sailors over there. I didn't know that he was there. I happened to see him. And my instinctive nature was to hide behind that wall over there. But I said, Lord, I walked up to him and I said, can I please pray for you? He said, yes, sir. I just prayed for him and I moved over that place. At least in India, nobody never says no to prayer. That's one good thing. Take that small steps of obedience. Don't wait for silver or gold I do not have, but in the name of the Lord, leave that stake and walk up. Boom! Don't wait for that. You do your part in small things, and you will see God doing His part. We need to do our part. I'm not going, why doesn't things always happen that way? That's another theological story. You can come and ask me later. I have 1 minute. And don't do things as an adrenaline junkie or a risk taker, but do things as an act of worship. I know of people who would say, we will do this for the Lord, and we will do a Rasta Roko or something like that. We are not called to do that. We are called to walk in step with the Spirit. Be still and know that I am God. If we still our souls, the Satish in me is always emerging and trying to engulf everything, because I inherently tend to want the glory. It's all about me. It happened in the Garden of Eden. It's about telling the Satish in me, shut up. I should become less, he should become more. So if you do that, you can hear him. You can hear his still soft voice. Focus on Christ. Focus on others. It's an upward calling, it's an outward calling. It starts from looking inwards. When I look inwards, I know where I stand. I look upwards, I get the strength to take my eyes off myself. And that results in looking outwards. If you start praying for others, I don't know about your praise. My praise always used to be about me, my children, my family, my friends. It was always about me. And a couple of months back, after a fantastic sermon by Jeff, I said, let's realign the list. And I said, let's start praying for others. And the moment I started praying for others, I realized there were no needs. My wants were nowhere failing in that list in relative importance of needs. When I get up in the morning, my heart stirs to pray for that gentleman who is in that house, who is suffering from schizophrenia. If you start looking outwards, your heart changes, you're transformed. For Christ's love compels us that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for Him who died for them. So pray for be sensitive to the need for others. Shall we just pray? God, Father, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for what you are in our lives. We thank you for speaking to us, Lord. Yes, Lord. I don't know what happened last Christmas, Lord. This Christmas, we come to your feet, Lord. It's not about Christmas. It's about the fact that you came down, Lord.
Yes.
You left your comfort zone, Lord. And you chose us first, Lord. I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. But I know one thing, Lord. You gave your all for me. You gave your all for us. So help me, Lord, as I strive to walk in obedience. Because I know I can't do it in my own strength. As we take these small steps of obedience, small steps of faith, Lord, talk to us, guide us, chide us, carry us through. We surrender ourselves into your hands. Let this word stay with us, Lord. Convict us as we walk. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.